Aloha, I'm Sabrina with Begin Being, and in this video, we're going to be talking about your triggers, like what is anchoring you. So kind of like what causes them and how to recognize them and what to do about them. And it's funny, so I was talking with someone the other day about like how do you choose what videos to make? Like how do you choose what videos to make next? And the question was more around, I did a 7 video series not too long ago. And the question was like, are you going to be doing more series videos like that? And my answer was, well, the ideas don't exactly come from me. So that's a good question, and I really don't know. And as an example of this morning, I went to put on my t-shirt, and I happened to be wearing this t-shirt about an anchor. And that got me thinking about people's anchors, like what we're anchored to and how those anchors are formed and like kind of how we can change them and if we want to and what to do about them. So yeah, this morning, the video today came from a t-shirt. So sometimes inspirations come to me from some other source that's not me. And here's the thing, I teach Neurolinguistic programming, NLP, so I travel the country and teach this. And I was just in Toronto. Next week I'm going to be in San Jose. And what happens is one of the things that I say about anchoring, it's not like, this is obviously more of a boat anchor. It's not anything to do with the boat or that kind of anchor. It's actually talking about anchoring from an NLP perspective. And as an example, it's one of the things that Tony Robbins did to help Serena Williams get her tennis game back. So Serena Williams was, an amazing sports player, tennis player, and she kind of lost her game for a little bit. And through using anchoring, Tony was actually able to help her get her game back. So that's some of the stuff that we teach in our NLP trainings is all about anchoring. And with that, as you go through childhood and everything, from psychology, it tells us that when you're a child, and the studies are now varying on the age. They used to kind of say like 7, some are now saying 5, some are saying 10. But basically, when you're a child, you are programmed. And what's happening, the reason why is because when you're younger, you're a sponge. So the brainwave patterns that you're in when you're a child, you're basically constantly in your unconscious mind. So you're continuously just being fed information, and you have not yet developed the critical factory to say, no, like that information, that's not for me. So for example, if your parents tell you something like, oh, like money is evil, money is dirty, money is bad, then you don't have the ability to filter that out and say, no, that programming is not for me. So from your parents, your school, if you have a religious practice that you go to, like a church, from all of these different sources, from the media, now for a lot of kids, it's through social media. You're getting bombarded with all of this information, and you don't have the ability to say no. You don't have the ability to say, that's not a belief that I want to adapt. So you end up adapting that belief. Fast forward to adulthood, what the example I just gave can look for you is, oh, maybe I don't want money. Like money is bad. Like, yes, I want to make more money, but every time you go to try and make more money, every time you get more money coming in, you spend it really fast because it's not good. It's evil. It should be shared, right? So then you can't hold on to it, you can't save, therefore you can't accomplish your goals, like buying a house or something like that. And you think you're always broke, even though maybe you're making decent money, it just feels like you're always broke because you have this programming in you at the unconscious level. I recently gave up coffee. So sometimes when you're doing work on yourself, like I had zero intention of giving up coffee, and sometimes when you're doing work on yourself, you just kind of change. Like there's different shifts and different changes that go on with you internally. And a lot of it has to do with you, like, so for example, for me, if I'm saying like, okay, this is like X over here, like this thing over here is important to me, I want this, then I'm going to do a manifestation where I bring in this. And part of the manifestation is who do I need to be in order to get this? Like, who do I need to be showing up as to get this? Now, I have like different techniques I could use through NLP to stop drinking coffee if I wanted to. And I, at the time, had no desire to, no reason to. I wasn't like a heavy coffee drinker. I was a very light coffee drinker. I think honestly for me, it was more of like a placebo effect, like the effect of coffee. And because of like the very potent smell of coffee, it goes straight into your olfactory, and you can even just smell coffee and think, oh, I'm so much more awake. It's not true. You can take one sip, coffee does not instantly hit your system, but you immediately feel more awake. So the caffeine's not actually doing anything to you. And I think that was happening with me. I just got into like the habit of drinking coffee. And like I said, I was doing some change work. This was a couple of months ago. I was doing some change work. And for whatever reason, I do not like the taste of coffee anymore. It's just like gone. I don't have any want for it or desire for it or anything. And so now I just drink tea if I'm wanting that, like, warmth or anything like that. So along with that, one of the things that was an anchor for me, I loved iced coffee. And the sound of the ice, like when you like shake it a little bit, like the sound of the ice like stirring, like this is water, but that sound, the sound of the ice, when you would shake your coffee, that was a trigger for me. That was an anchor for me to be able to know, ooh, it's time to have something yummy. It's time to have something enjoyable. It's time to wake up. Now that to me anyway, was a positive anchor. Now, if I purposely wanted to get rid of coffee, that could potentially become like a negative anchor, because then maybe I was trying to give it up, but I missed that sound. Or perhaps one of my friends or something would be drinking the coffee and they would do that sound and be like, oh, now I want coffee. So sometimes you can be anchored to something that's not positive for you. For example, scrolling on your phone is an anchor for a lot of people. You wake up in the morning and the first thing that you do is start scrolling on your phone. If that's you, you could potentially have something that's anchoring you in like a negative way. So there's many different techniques you can use. For example, for that particular technique, I would use a technique called a swish pattern, which basically it allows you to stop doing something, like maybe you're biting your nails, maybe you're shaking your leg, maybe you're scrolling on Facebook. It allows you to stop doing something and do something else instead. So for example, with the scrolling with social media, it could be like, okay, well, I still want to look at it, but maybe I will only want to scroll like a couple of times and then I'm done. So that's one of the things that you can use for that. And one of the things that we teach in our training for NLP, or at our NLP training for anchoring, is we take people from being procrastinators to then being motivated. So if one of your anchors is it's time to like do work, but for whatever reason you feel like, oh, it's Sunday, like I could, just sit on the couch and watch some TV, or I could avoid anything but actually doing what you're like wanting to do, like your goal. So if there's something that you're wanting to be doing and you're procrastinating on it, or you're, a continuous procrastinator, you find yourself being anchored to procrastination, then you can do what's called like a chain of anchors, which basically takes you from that procrastinated state all the way to a motivated state. Because again, sometimes we are programmed when we are little. So I challenge you to think about, kind of think certain what ways, are some of the things that you might be anchored to. And if we can get into that programming and scramble it, if we can get into that programming of, okay, this is what I'm doing that's not working. This is an anchor that I no longer want. Like for example, with my coffee, if I was wanting to give up coffee and I was like struggling with it, and that swirling of the glass was a negative anchor, then I could do some stuff to be able to move that away and have that no longer be an anchor for like happiness or pleasure or like a waking up for me. I can create something else instead. And there's different studies about the coffee, as far as, I think if you're a coffee drinker and you want to stay a coffee drinker, you can find plenty of studies to back you up on why coffee is good for you. And then I think if you are someone who's not a coffee drinker or someone who's wanting to give it up or has given it up, I think you'd find plenty of studies where, yeah, there's stuff about it that's not good for you. So I think it kind of goes back and forth, which is why, like for me, especially since I wasn't a heavy coffee drinker, I wasn't like intentionally trying to give it up. So if I still wanted to be a coffee drinker and, you know, someone came around and I didn't do any other release work. So if I didn't do any other work or anything and I still wanted to be a coffee drinker, but I was like kind of forcing myself to stop, then I think if someone came by me and had that anchor of, you know, this, if someone was by me and had the sound, the twirling of the ice, and I wasn't consciously aware of it, it could then be triggering me to be like, ooh, I want some coffee too. Now for me, like I said, I did some other change work, and apparently my highest self is like, no, you don't need that right now. So I just was able to stop completely, no big deal. And again, if I was forcing myself to stop and I wasn't doing any other change work, then yes, I could have that trigger. So I challenge you, where are some triggers in your life? What are some things that you might be anchored to that trigger you in perhaps an unhealthy way? Like I said earlier, for like first thing in the morning, you wake up, you start scrolling. Last thing at night before you go to sleep, you start scrolling. There's multiple things. I'm gonna do more videos on your brain and how it needs to be activated in like a more positive way in the morning, or how it needs to calm down at night and not be bombarded with all of the different things that are happening with social media and all of the different dramas that are happening out there, all of the different things you can get sucked into. In the morning, it's amazing to be able to have like an intention setting. It's amazing to be able to have like a morning meditation routine where you're setting your intentions for your day and being more intentional with your day. For night, it's a time to review. It's a time to review all of the things about your day and what were the amazing things about it? What were the things that you have now this opportunity to like possibly shift about, like, ooh, I didn't quite like how that part of my day went. What if I think about it in a different way? What if I think about, instead of like, oh man, like that thing that happened at work or whatever it might be, what if I think about it in, well, what was the lesson that I needed to learn? What was the lesson that I needed to learn about that information to be able to make the next time and maybe a similar situation comes up, make it better? That discussion that I have with my partner that didn't go so good, you know, how can I make that better? So that's kind of like your wind down time versus your scroll time. Maybe your triggers are how you allow people to treat you. Maybe it's something to do with you not being able to set boundaries. Maybe it's you get anchored to people treating you a certain way, and maybe that's not in your best interest. Oftentimes what can happen is when we're in like a relationship with a like romantic partner, sometimes if we had a bad experience in the past, sometimes it's a bad experience with our parents, and then that, like when we're children, and then that goes into our romantic relationships. And so if there's stuff that you haven't dealt with mom and dad, it can often get pulled into your romantic relationships and how you're able to show up there. So for example, you can get anchored, like if say, you know, mom treated dad horribly, or maybe it was dad treating mom, or maybe it's, you know, mom, who knows? Whatever your parental situation is, if one of them's like treating the other person badly, then you might be anchored to the other person treating you badly. And so then you're going to be accepting of someone treating you badly. And if someone doesn't treat you badly, then your anchor is not being fired off, it's not being triggered. And so you're gonna look for something else. You're gonna look for someone else who does treat you badly because that's what you're used to. That sucks, right? Thinking about that, it's like, hold on, but I don't want that. I don't want someone to treat me badly. Well, of course you don't. And if it's an anchor for you, if that's what you're used to, then that's what you're gonna draw into your life. And if you are not doing your work to figure out what your anchors are, to figure out what triggers you, and then to do the release work of doing either some anchoring techniques or maybe even some deeper mental and emotional release therapy. Then you're gonna kind of like be stuck with those triggers. If they're unconscious, you can't bring them to your consciousness and you can't heal them. So my challenge for you today is start paying attention. Start paying attention to what your triggers are and start paying attention to how you can change them. Because if it's not something that is positively triggering you, if it's not a positive anchor for you, then again, I challenge you to change that, to fix that. For example, there's so many different things that media uses for anchoring. So like if you see a picture of like the store Target, if you see the red Target with the red circle and the white, you can just see that and you're gonna be triggered, you're gonna be anchored to know that means Target. It's a symbol. It's a circle inside of it. It's like a circle inside of like a loop circle. That's all it is. What is the one that has the M? It's just an M, but you know exactly what that means. We're being anchored all of the time through media, through social media, through everything that we everything we interact or interacts with us in life. We are being anchored. Big stores are huge. Big corporations are huge with anchoring. They do it with the symbols, they do it with sounds, they do it even with smells. So you can get anchored very easily to a lot of different things, and you already are. So again, I challenge you to figure out what you are anchored to, because if you don't know, then someone else is anchoring you and they're in charge, not you. All right, thanks for watching. Everybody have an amazing day, and as always, choose love in all that you do. Mahalo. Be sure to like, click subscribe, download, upload, share, all of those different things. I don't think any of that made sense, but you know what I'm talking about. Do it. Ooh, just do it. Maybe that might be another anchor. Okay, but does anybody ever ask, just do what? That's the key. That's why it's an amazing anchor, because it means whatever it means for you.